Welcome to the Saturday build show, where we build the PC that we were kind of supposed to build yesterday. So this PC that we're building today is going to be a build for Jeremy. Long-awaited build. Finally, we're building it. The graphics card was actually something that I was talking about yesterday. For this PC, we had ordered it with the case. The case showed up, but there's no graphics card with that shipment, and so I had to go run out to Micro Center and pick up a card. The graphics card is for some reason coming from Ontario. I don't know why, but it's taking its time getting over here. So, hey LG, what's up? Juan? I don't know why your name comes up as Jeremy. That's what it showed up on Facebook. I will fix that for you. Hold on. Or I'll fix it when we switch over to the next screen. Yeah, over on Facebook it shows up as Jeremy. So I just took that name. It happens on all your platforms. Don't know why that happens. I'm sorry. I will make sure I change that name. So it's for Juan. Am I pronouncing that right? It's very strange. Nice. Well, we'll just get into it here. We'll switch to the top down. I'll fix the name here at the top of the screen real quick, just so we have that correction in place. There, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. All right, so we're going to run through the parts that we're going to be doing in this build. This is the Quantum Prime Tier 2, I think, on our website. If you wanted to purchase it, you can always go to our website and check it out. But I'll run through the parts right now. So it's supposed to have a Ryzen 5 3600, but we do have a Ryzen 5 4600G here. Really, this is the same processor, just has onboard graphics. And it doesn't have PCIe 4.0 support, but the motherboard doesn't either anyway, so in general it's the same performance. So that's the only difference in the build that we have. The 3600 was really difficult to get when we were ordering up the parts, so we ended up going with the 4600G. It's going to provide the same performance either way. Then we're going to be cooling the CPU with a Thermalright Frozen Note, which is a 240 millimeter AIO. So 240 millimeter radiator with two 120 millimeter PWM addressable RGB fans on there. It's also got kind of the infinity mirror on the block, so it gives a really nice look to the cooler in the CPU where the block it sits on the CPU there. Then we have a Gigabyte B450M Wi-Fi. So this is a really nice micro ATX motherboard that has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built into it. If you are building with this board and you are running Windows 10 and running into a Wi-Fi issue, I do have a video over on my YouTube channel where you can follow the steps to solve the Wi-Fi issue if that's still a problem. Honestly, don't know. This is going to be a Windows 11 build, and this board does not seem to be problematic with Windows 11. It seems to be isolated to Windows 10, that problem. And it's a driver issue. It's nothing wrong with the board, the hardware, or Windows. It's a driver issue by Gigabyte or Realtek, which usually these are Realtek Wi-Fi cards on here. Alright, so next up we have 16 gigabytes of DDR4 3200 megahertz at CL16. Was supposed to be Team Group, but we went with an equivalent through Silicon Power. It is addressable RGB RAM, so this is cool. Hey, you almost had it. Welcome back over on Kick. Let's go, let's go. We're doing another build, sir. So we've got the RAM, and then we have a 1 terabyte M.2 NVMe SSD, which is Gen 3, because the motherboard also does not support Gen 4, so we've got the Gen 3 SSD here. Powering the system is going to be a RS Games 750 watt 80 plus bronze. So we did put a larger power supply than what was really needed for this build in particular. You probably could just do a 500 watt for this build, but we went 750 to make sure that Juan has some time, or some, I guess, additional wiggle room for his power supply. If he ever wants to upgrade his graphics card, he can do that without having to upgrade his power supply as well in the future. Talking about the graphics card, I know I already mentioned it earlier, but it's the AMD Radeon RX 6600. This is the Challenger by ASRock, which does, I believe, have a factory OC on it, as well as a nice backplate, so it really gives it a cool look. Shows some of the fins on the back, as well as has the backplate covering the main portion of the card. It's a really cool looking card. So, without further ado, I guess we didn't really talk about the case, but it is Quantum Prime, so if you're familiar with any of my past streams, you've probably seen me build in this case before. It's not the Amanson like I normally do. It's the DIY PC version of this, but it's the Cube 01, and then we're building in black. We have a couple of case fans here that we're going to be adding to the build as well for the side and bottom, because it's that more modern look to the build, being a dual chamber micro ATX case. It's got the front glass and the side glass where your air intake is on the side, and the intake is also on the bottom where you have exhaust on the back and the top. So it's more modern. It's a more modern case design. And then you have your power supply on the back side of it, along with all your cables and extra storage that's not on the motherboard. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. We're just gonna move some of this stuff out of the way and then get started with the motherboard, the CPU, RAM, and the SSD. So Juan, are you excited for this build? I feel like you're extremely excited for it. At least that's what I've been told. We'll get zoomed in here so we can take a closer look at what we're doing as we're adding. Very excited. Awesome. But we'll get zoomed in here so we can take a closer look at the work that we're doing to the board when we're adding the SSD, the RAM, and the CPU and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and get the CPU opened up here. Missing a screwdriver. Hold on. Here it is. This little guy. Kind of acts as my box opener, my box cutter, but it's not a knife. So I don't accidentally cut myself because I'm constantly looking up here while I'm doing things. I'm sure if I had a box cutter and I was using it here, I'd probably have already cut myself by now. We open up the mechanism here on the AM4 socket, and then we line up our gold triangle here to this corner here, and then we drop the CPU into the socket. And it should fit pretty much like a glove, and then you pull the hammer down and lock it in. Now your CPU is installed. Now, a lot of times what happens with Ryzen CPUs, especially the AM4 CPUs, is your stock cooler, if you're running one, over time, will... Hey, happy Saturday, Dad Bods. Welcome back to the stream, sir. It's the weekend. It's a weekend build stream. But if you have a stock cooler like this, and you use the standard thermal paste on the bottom here, which is included, a lot of people will use these, and they're fine to use when you start out. But let's say you want to repaste or you want to replace the cooler. When you go to remove this, a lot of times what will happen is the CPU will get so stuck to this cooler, it'll come out with the cooler. So be careful whenever you are removing one of these AMD stock Wraith coolers. The CPUs, or almost every stock cooler from AMD, the CPUs like to stick to the bottom of them while you pull it out, and it'll pull right out of the socket. So as long as it doesn't bend any pins, which normally if you pull it straight out, it won't damage any of those pins, but people will forget or not notice that the CPU is on the bottom, and then go and set the cooler down somewhere else, and that's where you bend the pins. So just be careful, and always pull the cooler straight up. If you pull it off to the side like this, it will bend the pins. So always when you're removing a stock AMD cooler, pull it straight up. Especially if it's stuck. If it's stuck, that generally means your CPU is stuck to the heatsink as well. Just a quick tip there. And it's okay for that to happen. It's not going to damage the pins as long as you pull it straight up. Hey Steve, welcome back to the stream. Notice you have episode 400 coming up. Congratulations. Thank you. Yes, we have episode 400, which will probably be either tomorrow, Sunday, or Monday. Monday for sure. Sunday is a maybe. It's up in the air if we actually build Sunday or not. I'm waiting on 2 parts, and it's whether or not they actually show up tomorrow. If they do, I might do the build stream Sunday. But if not, it's definitely going to be there by Monday, so we'll have the build stream Monday. We'll have episode 400 on Monday coming up. Alright, so now I'm going to get the SSD. Max. You're a crazy dog. Max is behind me, spinning in circles, growling at his tail. It's quite distracting. Alright, so let's go ahead and get our SSD pulled out of our packaging. We're going to get it mounted into the M.2 slot here on the motherboard. And I have a M.2 screw already in the stud here. We're going to remove that because we're going to need it to secure the drive. We're going to drop the drive in on a slight angle here, that it gets socketed into its pins there, and then we'll use the screw to secure the drive. and that's not going to go anywhere, and it's now seated and ready to go. And that's all there is to a M.2. Hey, Ariana, thank you for the whoop whoop over on Facebook. How's it going over there in Florida? All right, so next up we're going to grab the RAM, which is by Silicon Power. This is a 16 gig kit. And this is their Zenith series, which is addressable RGB, which synchronizes with the RGB software from the motherboard. It's going great. Is it snowing down there? Probably not. I know that's a stupid question. It's actually snowing up here for, I think, the first time in 2024. All right, so we've got the two slots that we're going to be putting these in is A2 and B2. Usually that's what those are labeled on the boards. And there's really only one way you can put it in. You have a slot, and there's more pins on one side than the other. So there's only one way you can actually put this in. For these Zenith series, the sticker points towards the front of the PC. There we go. We've got our RAM installed. Next up, we're going to, I believe, remove these adapters, or these brackets from the socket, because we already know. I'm pretty sure, you know what? No, actually, this one uses the brackets. So never mind. We're going to just confirm that they're tight. But sometimes out of the factory, they're not. So that means the board is actually ready to go. We don't have any mounting hardware because this particular cooler has a little, like a C clamp that clamps to the lip of the AMD stock mounting hardware here. So, with that being said, we are ready to pull the case out. I'm going to go ahead and get it zoomed out here. For some reason, my camera wants to zoom back in. Hey. So we're going to zoom out, and then I'm going to get the case out of its box, and then we'll get started on putting the board in the case and start with the case fans. Ouch! Some static electricity there. So again, if you've been watching the channel or following, you've probably seen me building this before. I have really enjoyed these micro ATX. They're basically like an O11 Dynamic by Lian Li, but a very mini micro ATX version of it. It's basically what it is. It's the cheaper knockoff, I guess you can call it. But it has the same looks and same feels. The metal is a little thinner. Not gonna lie about that. But still a great case to build in. So I'm gonna start by removing the glass panel, which is also different than the O11 or any of the Lian Li for that matter cases. So you have 4 screws that secure the glass. And then I believe this glass is just pushed in. So I'm going to just pop it out here, get that out of the way. But one thing I like about this case specifically is there's no bracket here, no reinforcement. So you have glass on glass edge so you can see right through the corner, and it really gives it a nice look. Hey, what's up, some giant idiot? Welcome back to the build show, the stream. The weekend build stream. All right, so the last thing we got to do is take the back panel off. And then we can drop this board in there and get started. Get this thing rolling. We're looking to have this ready for 1 by tomorrow. So, probably be a late evening for me finishing the prep on this. But we'll get her done. Alright, so we've got our cables pulled through and out of the way. I'm just gonna kind of stuff them through the power supply there for now. Power supply outlet. Good evening. It is a good evening. Alright, so the always forgotten IO shield. There is a little trick, which I might show you here, on how you can get this in place without having to unplug everything. In fact, I'll just kind of reenact the scenario. So let's pretend, we're doing a lot of pretending. So let's pretend we have this board already mounted. You have all your cables plugged in. You even have your AIO installed, blocked to the CPU. Everything's done. And then you go to plug everything in and you realize, oh no, I forgot my IO shield. And you have this big gap on the back. Well, there is a way, kind of a trick, to get around having to unplug everything and pull the board out and redo it. Really, it's very simple. All you do is you unscrew the motherboard, and as long as you have enough loose cable on the backside where the motherboard can move, you don't have to disconnect anything. You just slightly move your motherboard out of the way so you have this little gap between the board and the case, and that's where you can slide this in. So all you got to do is have enough free cable in the back for any of the cables to move it maybe half an inch or so. You do a guy that forgot it and left it off instead of, well, I mean, it takes like maybe 5 minutes to do this kind of hack if you forgot it, but you could slide it in here and you can easily, I mean, yeah, you'll have less space for your fingers, but you can easily get it back in here without having to tear the entire PC apart. Everybody thinks you have to basically rebuild the whole thing, but it's usually just a few screws on the motherboard that's holding it back from getting installed. I mean, I've done it before. I've actually forgot it. It was quite a few streams ago, but I've done it live on stream. But then, I mean, you just slide it back over, put the screws in, you're good to go. Hey, thanks for the follow over on Twitch, LG Chap. So, that's how you kind of work around that. I'm going to remove this one stud that's not quite in the right position. Any dad jokes for the studs tonight? The dads are the real studs, you know that, right? There we go. So we've repositioned that stud, which was not in its right place. Now we're ready to drop this into the case and get it screwed in and secure it finally to its final destination. And we're going to double check the back to make sure none of those clips on the IO shield are obstructing any of the USB ports or Ethernet port. I see that a lot also. Usually when that happens, I'll just pull it through and cut it, because I am not going to go through the process of redoing that. But it's always a good habit to check it as soon as you put one of those in. Dude was like, I spent 8 hours on this. I'm not spending another 10 minutes on fixing an unimportant problem. No, I hear you. But when you're, you know, when you're doing it as a service, you know, somebody paid you to do it, then you kind of are forced to do it right. So, or you should be doing it right. So you have to go back and fix it if you ever forget it and you're flipping PCs or whatever. Cool trick. Saves you time. All right, so we've got 6 screws to really get this mounted to the case and secured. It's just the 6. You guys are getting paid, Mimi. Yeah. I help friends and family build the rigs and never seen a cent. Well, they should at least give you a 6-pack. Or something. You know, whatever. If they know you well enough, they know what you like, so... give you something you like. At least do something like that. It's what a lot of people did to me when I was building for friends and family. They'd, like, give me beer or, you know, whatever. Reese's was also a big thing for me. I'm a big Reese's guy. All right, so there we go. We've got our board installed, ready to go. They said that's reward. They know that I like to build PCs. Oh, that's nice. Well, I mean, as long as you accepted it, you could just be honest with them. Dude, I just got an instant blue screen while watching Netflix for some reason. What? Agent Smith, what's up? Let me know if that blue screen keeps happening. It's one of ours that we built, right? Netflix now charging people for blue screens. Yes. It might be because you have it on multiple PCs and they want to charge you for every PC that you're running it on and every phone and every household, and there's an upcharge, an upcharge, an upcharge. You're gonna have to start being like Buffalo Wild Wings and have one connection and then just duplicate it to all your screens. Be more like Buffalo Wild Wings. All right, so now we're going to get the fans installed at the bottom here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this opened up. We have 2 fans on the bottom, 2 fans on the side, 1 on the rear. And I want to get those all done before we put the AIO in. And you know what? Before we actually put these fans in, I want to get the bottom connections connected. We don't have to combat the fans on the bottom. So I'll at least get these out. And we'll real quick go back to that. Oh shoot, the chat's moving quicker than I can read. Gotta remember, guys, I'm streaming to multiple platforms and the chat's all in one place. I booted up my PC, opens Edge, watching Netflix, I open another tab, then switch back, Netflix, then boom, blue screen. And no, it's my custom. Oh, okay. Sorry. You could do a tool called Blue Screen View. Pull that up and check to see if it's pointing to anything specific that would have caused the blue screen. Hello, sorry for bothering you. I want to offer a promotion for your channel. If there's any moderators on, please go ahead and cut that guy off. Some giant idiot. You should probably be a mod. Yes. I have a couple volunteers that volunteered to mod and they're just never on anymore. So I'll have to give you the rights over there on Twitch. I trust in your judgment. Yay, more on paperwork. Only if you want to. I'll send you some gifts, at least. You only have the one monitor? So yeah, Woomy over on YouTube, I would suggest maybe just taking a look at the blue screen view tool, which you can download from bleepingcomputer.com, and run that. You have to run it as administrator, and make sure you download the 64-bit version of that, and it might be able to tell you actually what caused the blue screen. But that's not the first time I've actually heard that, but generally blue screens like that would be pointing to RAM. And I'm actually dealing with a similar issue with another customer right now. Thankfully they're local, where we thought it was a RAM issue. He was having random blue screens and just weird behavior. And we've already replaced the RAM now, and he's still continuing to have the blue screens. So at this point, I've decided it's the motherboard, so I'm replacing the motherboard next, and that's going to be probably on Monday. To see if that solves the problem at this point, because we've already gone through 2 sets of RAM, and I'm pretty confident it's not the RAM anymore. But we're going to get that squared up. Hey Colton, welcome to the stream, sir. So we're going to get that straightened out. And I think it's the motherboard that's causing it, but there's still a possibility that the blue screens are being caused by RAM. So that's always a possibility. The RAM could, or not the RAM, the CPU. Sorry. Because the memory controller is actually on the CPU, so there's still a possibility that the CPU is actually the problem. Even though we've replaced the RAM and now we're going to replace the motherboard. But those are the 2 most common, the motherboard and the CPU, or the motherboard and the RAM. Agent Smith, I hope you don't mind I banned that promo bot. No, not at all. I didn't know if you were still on. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you for keeping it clean over there on Twitch. Alright, so we're going to get the front I/O panel connected here. So we're dealing with the connections for the power button, the reset switch, the power LEDs right now. And then this big one right here is going to be our USB 3.0, which connects to the USB 3.0 header. And then we have a USB 2.0 header, which is going to plug into the USB. It's usually USB 1 is generally what it's labeled as. That just gets plugged in here, usually at the center of the board at the bottom. And then the last one is our HD audio, and that's for microphone and your headset on the front panel. Mods are awake. Leaves. I have shit internet. I'm running on my cell phone hotspot, and it's not very good. Oh, no worries, man. Don't worry. Pew pew. All right, so we've got all that plugged in there at the bottom. You can see why I kind of wanted to take care of that before we started putting fans in. But now we can actually start putting these fans in on the bottom. We have an addressable RGB connection and a PWM fan connection that we're going to push through the bottom. We're going to set these fans as intake. We wanted to pull air in from the bottom of the case. So we got to make sure we point the fan the right direction. Yeah, I know. He goes pew pew. I don't know what sound he makes when he's doing that anymore, other than like screaming like he's gonna take a large SHIT. I never got into Dragon Ball Z, believe it or not. Not anything like crazy. Ah! No, I'm that boomer nerd. Back in my day, I did play Yu-Gi-Oh! That was kind of the closest thing to anime that I did. And Pokemon. I liked Pokemon. That was a long, long time ago. That's the only one you liked? Nice. Nice. All right, so we've got one fan installed. Making progress. I probably could have just gone through the other spot. Whatever. It'll be fine. Next up, fan number 2 on the bottom. We're also going to make this intake. We need air going into the PC. I'm gonna feed the cables through the bottom hole here. That way we can Get this fan installed. Double check to make sure I'm putting the fans in the right way, because I've done that too many times. Distracted, talking. Oops! Putting the fans in as exhaust, not intake on the bottom. I do that way too often. Don't worry, I always catch it and fix it. Where? Are they here for me? For those of you who don't know, you can go over to the Twitch side and play sounds on the stream. I'm happy to hear that it still works, because I haven't haven't really looked at it in a while. No reason why it wouldn't have worked, but I almost want to reroute these cables for this one fan here. It will be a challenge. That it will be a challenge worthy of my skill. Does anybody know where that's from? That statement, a challenge worthy of my skill. I know really only one person that would get that. Maybe, well, I gotta go. Only have limited data. No worries, man. Thanks for stopping in, sir. We'll catch you on the next one. There we go. The rerouted cables made much more sense. Note to self, in the future, put them in the first hole, not the second. Alright, so next up is the rear fan that we're going to install here. So we want this rear fan installed before we put that AIO in. This is going to be an exhaust fan, so it's going to exhaust. We're going to make sure we put it in the correct way. Right. Right, good. And then we'll tie that in with probably the CPU fan header. Since it'll be here with that. All we needed to do. All right, there we go. We're ready for some screws. Okay. You ever put the combined chat of all the streams in the right corner with a transparent background? I have, yes. I have done that. Problem is now, so in the past I used to stream to all the platforms through Streamlabs, and that's when I could do the chat. Now I'm streaming only to Restream, which is a tool that you can stream to. You stream to Restream, and then Restream in the cloud distributes it to all the different locations. So now the chat isn't landing in Streamlabs, it's landing in Restream. So I'll have to think of a solution there. But I did used to do that. I used to have that set up, yes. Because I didn't want people thinking I just... Yeah, so many hops to jump, I know. Well, the reason why I did that was because I was getting weird issues. Hey, Fallen, how's it going? Welcome to the stream over on YouTube. The reason why I did that, some giant idiot over on Twitter, is because I was having some weird audio issues where my PC just didn't like how I was streaming to so many platforms or something. What is 1 plus 1? I believe it's 2. Also, hi, what's up, Gucci Duck? How's it going? So... But it's been a while, so I could probably revisit and try it and save myself the subscription from Restream. Alright, so now we have to just put the 2 fans here on the side, and these are also going to be intake. Yo, thanks, it subbed. How did you get the math answer so quickly? I don't know. Yeah, you think I'm a robot. I actually just guessed. I didn't really know the answer. Did I get it right? What is 2 plus 2? 4? He's escalating it. It's he's gonna try to find my weakness. I don't think he did it with core math, though. No, definitely not, Clyde, no. Common Core... don't even get me started with Common Core. You want me to get the whiteboard out? You get the whiteboard out, we'll break this down. Well, tangled up. Bad fan. Untangle. What's 3 plus 3? 6. I think 3 plus 3 is 6. So I'm going to guess your next equation, Gucci Duck. What's 4 plus 4? And the answer is 8. And then your next one is 5 plus 5. And the answer is 10. And you're just going to keep increasing the numbers. I know that core maths is, but for the rest of the dumb nuts out there, what is core math? You should probably just YouTube it. It's easier that way. I honestly don't want to try to explain the difference between Common Core versus probably how you and I learned, which is very different. My daughter, who's 11 years old, was being taught Common Core, and I actually pulled her out of that curriculum because I didn't like it. Call me a terrible parent, but I did not like how she was being taught math. Made it so basically you didn't have to think for yourself to come up with the answer. There was less thinking and more kind of formula driven, which does help set you up for things like algebra, but you know. Okay, this is hard. What is 6 plus 6? It's 12. How do I know that? I don't know. I'm just honestly guessing. It has an i7 and a 4050. What was the question, Fallen? Sorry. The chat moved. Hold on, everybody pause the chat. Hey, Army. What's up over there on Twitch? Fallen, did you have another question? Should I overclock my laptop? Absolutely not. No. Fallen, I got back to your chat and found it. So definitely do not overclock anything in a laptop. The number one reason why is because of heat. You're the next Albert Einstein. Thank you, Gucci Duck. So the i7, well, just in general, any laptops don't dissipate heat very well. If you're overclocking, you're actually going to create more heat. And number two, it's probably going to be almost damn near impossible to overclock a laptop CPU outside of maybe what software the manufacturer has provided to you. For example, if it's MSI and you have MSI software like the MSI Center, you might be able to do some overclocking in that, but that's going to be your limitation. You can't do it the proper way by going into the BIOS. Generally, the BIOS is going to be pretty locked down to basics because they don't want you burning it out. What is CPU? Central Processing Unit. That is what CPU stands for. It is what processes everything in the PC. PC is personal computer. We still use that old term for our computer names. Stop. The only thing worth but risky on laptops from that point is undervolting. Yes, no, that's a very good point. But again, the BIOS is pretty much going to be locked down. So unless it's like software supported, most of the time your BIOS is locked down to the point where you can't even undervolt on a laptop. They just don't want you going in and modifying it. It just introduces more problems than what it's worth. So to answer your question, you should not overclock a laptop. Anything on a laptop. If anything, kind of like Big is saying, you should be undervolting. And that actually might help you a lot better if you're getting a lot of thermal throttle and you're trying to find more performance. Thermal throttle is where your CPU or your graphics card is overheating and it's slowing itself down to actually cool itself down. So that's thermal throttle. So if that's happening and you're losing performance, it might actually be a benefit to undervolt to kind of help. But you also might have a different problem. You also might need new thermal pads or thermal paste on the GPU or CPU. And possibly, you know, if it's a dedicated GPU, it might have its own memory, so thermal pads there as well. And then also adjusting the fan curve is a benefit as well. I do a lot of those for gaming or performance laptops. People bring those in, they say they're overheating or they're not performing like they did when they first bought them. And that's usually the number one problem, is heat. How can I build a laptop from cardboard? Somebody actually on YouTube, or I've seen a couple of videos of guys putting together a couple of different desktops with cardboard. I don't see why you couldn't do the same thing. So maybe reference one of their videos and just make it a laptop, right? On a roll tonight. Keep the questions coming. Some giant idiot. I had no idea they could lock down BIOS. Oh yeah. Most laptops are very limited for what you could do in there. Actually, for years, unlocked BIOSes were a rare occurrence, especially on non-self-built machines. Yes. Sorry, bro. I gotta go. But this is a cool stream. Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for hanging out, Gucci Duck. We'll see you next time. Come hang out again. Yeah, that's generally, I'd say, you know, today everything's pretty much going to be on a laptop for the most part locked down, unless it's a actual performance laptop where it specifies that you can overclock. But I don't know any that can do that. Most manufacturers are going to probably want to lock down so that they have control or to keep you from overclocking. And maybe there's ways to you know, get it, I don't know, unlock it. I'm just not sure. Never tried to, because you're already dealing with too much heat as it is, generally. All right, so I think we're at a point where we can get the side fans plugged in, and then we'll go ahead and get started with plugging in the, or getting the AIO installed. Once we have that done, then all we got to do is put the graphics card in, and we can move on to cool things like the power supply and cable management and firing this thing up, seeing what it looks like. Juan, are you ready to see this thing fired up yet? Are you fired up to see it fired up? Dad joke, sorry. I'm a dad, so naturally those things are gonna come out of my mouth. At least I'm not asking, you know. Yes, sir, LOL, I appreciate the dad joke, thanks. No problem. Hey, Gucci, you're back. Welcome back, sir. I hope your time away was meaningful and enjoyable. Hola. So I'm just working on the connections for the back of the PC here so that we can move on to the AIO cooler, the CPU cooler. Now let's get this plugged in first so that doesn't kind of try to take off on us. Boy, come back here, you. There we are. So we got our PWM fan connection for all 4 of these plugged in. And then I'm going to run this addressable RGB to the RGB header at the bottom of the board here. Sneak that in nice and neat. Sneaky, sneaky. Come on, you. Work with me. I don't care how good of a builder you are. This thing is sometimes a pain in the butt. These connections, the RGB 3-pin 5-volt RGB connections. I feel like you can never, it's something you can never line up the first time. It just wants to fight. Fight me. PC's coming together. Thank you. Yeah. I breathed air. Were you like swimming under a pool trying to watch and hang out here on the stream? The PC is coming together. How often do you do these streams? When we have orders and builds, we're doing them. And then if, so like right now we have builds lined up for the next couple days. Tomorrow is a maybe on the stream, but Monday for sure is the next one. So if we had orders all the time, then we would just be building all the time. But these are customer builds that we're building. So this one's for Juan, LG, who's been chatting as well. So he's here hanging out, watching us build it for him. So you can always go to our website and order if you ever are interested in getting your PC built live on stream. All right, so now that that's done, we're ready to move on to the AIO. This guy, it's upside down. There we go. The liquid AIO cooler. 240 millimeters of radiator. You build on the Lord's Day. I try to avoid actually working on Sunday, period. In fact, our store hours are closed on Sunday. So really, I'm only there for support if somebody needs something on a Sunday. And I do some builds on Sunday depending on how crazy busy it is. But if you look at our store hours on Google or the website, it should be closed. Sunday's tomorrow, yes. This is super cool, but for real, I gotta go. All right, good luck, man. Thank you. We'll see you next time. For real. Yes, tomorrow is Sunday. Bye, Gucci Duck. Have a good one, man. I thought it was Gavin Tuesday. I don't know. Sometimes I don't even know what day it is anymore. We've got a PWM fan connection for the CPU fan. Splits off into two because we've got two fans. Right. Good. And then the next thing we have to do is rotate these fans because the wires are facing the wrong way. We need them facing this way. So when we put it in, it's facing the back of the PC where we need the cables to go. We gotta spend a couple minutes here just undoing the fans, rotating them, and re-securing them to the radiator because they were pre-mounted the wrong way. Thermalright, if you are watching, please stop mounting the fans that way. Do it the opposite direction. If you ever come across one of my videos, Thermalright, I complain about it every time I have to do this. I don't know who puts the cables or the hoses to the back of the PC anymore. That was something from many years ago. There's only a couple of cases that you still want to do that. Rare. Nowadays, almost every case I put the hoses towards the front because you have a rear fan that will bite those hoses. Just a preference on my end, I guess. I don't know. I also think it looks way better. Fills the PC out way better. Alright, so there we go. We've got our fans rotated. Now we're just going to undo the twist ties and get the cables through the holes and mount the cooler, finally, to the top of the case. Alright. Then this is our pump, which we're going to just run that to the back and run it off the SATA. Run at the same speed throughout the life. We're going to take the longer cables. There's another complaint I would have, but I'm complaining too much. Push them through here, the back, feed them through. And then our power for our fan, control for our fan, goes through here. Power and data signal connection control thing, PWM connection. Goes in, lift that up, and we are ready to mount. I'm going to try to push it towards, try to center it up actually, because the bottom fans are pretty center. So the aesthetics would say center this bad boy up. I'm just eyeballing it. But I like how this case gives you a lot of different options because you can place it either further out or further in, and I like to pull it as far out as possible. It actually, I think, blends with these fans down here at the bottom much better this way. There we go. Now our AIO is installed, or at least the radiator is. Got to finish feeding some of these cables to the back. And then you can get the block on the CPU here. Move on to the next step. I guess the pump should get fed through as well. There we go. Now really we are ready to get this block on the CPU here, finally. One step closer to the finish line. I'm actually going to peel this off right now. Don't forget to peel this off your block, this little shiny piece of plastic. If you forget to peel these off, your cooler's not going to work correctly. You're going to overheat. I've had quite a few people bring their PC in to me after they built it, saying, yeah, it's overheating and I can't figure it out. Turns out they forgot to peel, and you'll be surprised how many times it's actually happened. Then I'm looked at like a wizard for figuring that out. Y'all wizard. Alright, so now we just need our thermal paste. And we block it. We block it. Might help if you're turning that the right way, or I don't know what just happened there. Son of a bitch. I don't know what I just did there, but that just happened. That's why I'm not the greatest fan of this mounting mechanism. Cool that it's reusing the same, you know, brackets from the motherboard. Saves a little bit of effort. And this should be easier than what you think it is. Maybe I just had it too loose. There we go. So we got our block installed. I'll keep that there until we get the power supply cables done so I don't bump it and put some fingerprints on it. But I am going to put the graphics card in now. David, that's kind of ruthless. Don't accept that behavior. You're gonna have to buy a bigger case soon? I hear ya. There's so many different cases out there, you know, ones that we've talked about. All of them are super badass cases. Alright, so graphics card. The RX 6600. 8GB. This is the ASRock Challenger. Beautiful card. How much are you selling this for? It's actually on the website. It's the Quantum Prime Tier 2. So you can order it directly from the website, and then I build them live on stream for you. So you can always watch your PC being built live. And it includes a 2-year warranty. So we're just going to peel all these peels off this graphics card. The last time I did this Challenger one, I had such a weird experience with the peel. It was very unexplainable. It was like it sat in a hot box for a long time and melted to the card. Alright, time for the card to go in. It's as easy as that. That 360 AIO is front-mounted and working great, but having the fans exposed had bumped the headphone cable a couple times. Oh, nice. Do you have to put the fans on the front of the case, or what do you mean by exposed? Talking to Army Vet over on Twitch. Yeah? Hmm. Yeah, I think a bigger case would benefit. You would benefit from a bigger case. Solve that problem and get everything internally. Internal. Well, it should be internal. Alright. There we go. We've got a pretty badass looking PC, right? So now the only thing that's left is really power supply and some cable management on the backside. Holy crap, look at that. We'll get the CPU plugged in here real quick. I always ask myself, why do I do this to myself? Pick the more complicated builds to build. Oh, I didn't just do that, did I? Whatever. Just put it in that one. There we go. So we've got all these top connections plugged in. We just have to deal with the cable management side of that a little later. We also have a EPS cable that we have to run down this way as well. I meant to actually order those. Because of the water pump needing to be the low point, it wouldn't fit inside. I gotcha. Yeah, that's a good point. That is a very important key factor in any AIO to make sure the pump is lower. But you bought the Peerless Assassin, didn't you? Or not the Peerless, I mean the Frozen Note. That's an inline pump. So the pump is actually inline on the hoses. Or should be. So as long as it's lower than the top of the AIO, could be good. Because of the water pump needing to be... Oh, yeah, we already went through that. So, I'm just curious if you saw that it was an inline pump. That means it could be on the lower part or the upper part, as long as the pump itself on the lines are lower than the top of the radiator if it's standing vertically. But it should be lower than the radiator itself. That's where you generally want the air to get trapped. So what I'm saying is, if I flip this over, the pump on this unit, this is the same unit, it's just a 240 millimeter instead of the 360, but the pump is actually right here in the lines versus being on the block or in the radiator. Hey Steve, thanks for the sub over on YouTube. Stable as well, Jay as well, thank you for the subs over on YouTube. But that's generally where the pump is on that AIO. So it really made it so that no matter what position you put the AIO, you could even put the radiator at the bottom, the pump is not going to be the lowest point, or the highest, I'm sorry, highest point of the loop. Doesn't matter at that point. The block would be, but that's not where the pump is. So it would be safe to do that. That's the reason why I like the inline pump so much, is because it doesn't really matter where you put the radiator. It's really almost impossible to make that pump higher or the highest point in the loop. All right, so power supply time it is. I have 6 of those 360s here if you need me to open one up and kind of go through it real quick. We're getting into the old school soundtrack, guys. It must be over an hour. We are. Alright, so this is a semi-modular power supply, which means some of the cables are already attached to the power supply here, which are not removable, and the rest are modular, which are removable. But I'm going to put all of the cables on here. That way, if they bring it back to me and ask me to do upgrades in the future, all of their power supply cables are in the back, ready to go and not misplaced or lost or something like that. That seems to happen a lot. Seems to happen quite a bit. So, I generally like to put the modular cables on the power supply and keep them in the PC for safekeeping. And always remember, with this type of build, the style, you want your power supply fan facing the back, because the back panel that covers this is ventilated right here for the power supply. So that way you don't suffocate your power supply. And that really goes for any dual chamber case. Honestly, it's all designed the same way. So just keep that in mind when you're putting your power supply in, because you can put it in upside down, with the fan facing down, you can mount it that way, and the screws will allow it, or the mounting holes, but you will be suffocating your power supply. Don't do that. But we're nearly finished here. We're nearly across the finish line. We just got to get some power supply cables plugged in. The cable management, for the most part, is done. Then we can power this bad boy up and move on to the software side of it. So this is our 24 pin. This is what powers the motherboard. I'm gonna just get it positioned like so. So it sits nice and neat or easy. Next one is the CPU. This is our EPS cable. It's 8 pins. This is what powers the CPU. We're gonna run that up here towards the top. It's in the top corner here. Have it sit there, and then we'll kind of manage that here after we get it plugged in. One of the last ones that we have to plug in on the front side is our graphics card, which is going to be our PCIe, usually labeled PCIe 8-pin plus 2. If you have a graphics card that requires 2 of these, it's always best to make sure that you use 2 separate cables. So if you have a graphics card that requires 2 8-pin connections, do not use the daisy chain option like this. It's better that you go get your second cable, or if you don't have one, get a power supply that does have the second cable and feed it with 2 separate cables rather than using the daisy chain. You use the daisy chain, you're actually not supplying the right amount of power to the graphics card. I always recommend using 2 separate cables. It's the best practice. And then I just gotta feed this 8-pin through here. Little bit of a tight fit. I won't lie about that. This case has a tight fit going through these holes on the side. But if you wiggle it, you will get it through. Alright, so let's flip it over. Now that we have all the cables fed through to the front, we can flip this over and get our 24 pins plugged in. Again, this is our motherboard power. This is what powers the motherboard itself. And then our 8-pin CPU. This is what powers the CPU. Of course, it helps if you plug it in the right way. Each one of these have a clip on them. If you look carefully, has a little clip. And the clip can only go in one way. So you know for sure you're not plugging it in the wrong way. And they're pinned out so that you really can't plug them in the wrong way. Or at least it makes it very difficult to push them in the wrong way. So if you're worried ever that you're plugging it in the wrong way, it's very difficult to do that. Couple of zip ties here to clean up this PCIe cable so it doesn't look like a huge mess here. Make it look nice and neat. There we go. And we'll flip this over and tidy up the rest of these power supply cables, and then we'll fire it up the first time. So I'm just gradually winding up these cables here the best I can so that they're nice and neat set inside this bundle of cables. So it looks cleaner on the backside. Just take your time bundling them up. They'll fold the direction that they want to fold, but then you'll eventually have something like this that we'll put a couple of zip ties on, and it'll look a lot cleaner. I need a big zip tie. Then you'll have something like this, where we could just place this bundle here. And it'll look nice and neat here. And then we have our pump, which was the last connection that I'll plug in right here, so it's accessible, easily accessible. If we ever have to take this out, we want to be able to unplug that if we ever had to. So it's right there on the top, ready to go. So, last thing we want to do is put the back cover on. That's the top dust filter, though not really required. In fact, the top dust cover, if anything, is probably restricting airflow. And then I will put the front glass, and I might even put the side panel glass on there. I'm not sure yet. But that is basically our end results here. Nice and clean. All right, so next up we'll get it plugged in and fired up. What do you guys think? Does it look good? Oh, I forgot to put this on. I'm only human, after all. Now he's pick up all the extra hardware out of each build, and I send that with each of the PCs to make sure that they have the hardware for any upgrades that they do in the future. So it makes it so much easier to upgrade things when you have all the screws and the hardware to do it. It's a complete build. I have a couple of fingerprints here on the glass that I need to wipe. Oops, my bad. I like to try to polish the glass anyway. For each build, I try to do that. Crystal clear. All right, the top panel is the last, or the side panel is the last panel we're going to put on. I believe that's going to peel on both sides. And then four screws to hold this. 4 grooves. 4 screws. There you go. That there's a clean PC. Crispy. I'm going to plug it in, then we'll change the view over to the side view so you guys can check it out while we're firing it up. For just a moment, I'll get the view changed. Switch over to the side cam. Get to see if it posts between power on self-test. So LG, are you here and are you ready to see this thing fired up for the first time? And is my chat frozen? It probably is. Let me know, LG, in the chat. Let me know if you're ready to go. Because the PC is ready to go. Yes. I'm Tom. Zaz. I'm trying to get the least amount of reflection there on that glass. I cannot wait. Plug that sucker in. Well, I'm pushing the button. Maybe. Very uneventful. Well, this is the first, guys. The only thing I could think of is that I unplugged it, the power button. When I did the cable management, I might have pulled the power plug. Let's go back to the top-down view real quick and fix this. Most likely, I pulled the power plug while I was doing the cable management on the backside. Yep. Not perfect. Hold on. We got to pull the card real quick and then we are fixing this. It's an easy fix. Don't go anywhere. There we go. Now we just got to put it back together. It's all fixed. Psych! We thought it was powering on then. Hold on, we're almost there. Like 2 more minutes or less. Don't worry, I'll polish up the glass again. Hey, I'm Tom. Thanks for the sub over there on YouTube. Sorry I missed that. Noti. All right. Finally. Two more screws and we're good to go. Are you ready to finally see this thing? Are you ready? This time it's for real, I promise. Here we go. And 3, 2, 1. Probably gonna be the Gigabyte Orange. It is. I need to get a turntable for this. Have it spin round and round and round and round and round. Just waiting for the post screen to pop up here. Probably looks better without the reflections. But the Gigabyte Orange is just the default color that the motherboard spits out for the RGB when you first power on a Gigabyte motherboard. So until we get into the Windows and install the actual RGB Fusion software for the Gigabyte motherboard, it's going to stay orange until we get there. But it's just posted, so we have a successful power on, booted up, or at least fired up to the BIOS. So we're ready to load up Windows and move on to the next step. So it's booted up and ready to go. At least ready for the next step. So at this point, I would say it's pretty safe to assume that we will have it ready to go for pickup tomorrow. And I'm sure you're excited to get over here and pick it up. but the top fans are kind of hidden from the camera. But there's RGB on the top, the bottom, the side, the rear, the Rams RGB, and then you have the infinity mirror on the center. It is picking up a lot of reflection from the background behind the camera there. The glasses. Thank you so much for this, dude. Sorry it's been such a hassle. No, not a hassle at all, man. Cannot wait to pick it up. Thank you. No problem, man. Can't wait to meet you. So you can, so I can see your reaction. So I'll probably leave it here on the bench for you. Fire it up when you arrive, so I can walk you through some stuff. But overall, I think the build turned out great. Minus the little hiccup with the power button. Oops. But I mean, that happens. So, yeah, the build's gonna be awesome. So, can't wait to meet you tomorrow. Thanks everybody for hanging out. I appreciate y'all. Next time we'll be live is if we have a surprise stream tomorrow. It'll be a surprise, even though I'm telling you right now. So tomorrow's stream is a maybe. Monday is a for sure. I will have a build stream. As long as the rest of the components that we're waiting for do show up between tomorrow and Monday for the Monday build. So let me know if anybody has any questions on anything. You know how to reach me, and thank you everybody for hanging out. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. And if you are subbing and donating anything to the channel, just so you're aware, everything from the channel that we make from the media goes to the $1 PC giveaway. What is that? Well, it's where we give away a PC for $1. The reason why we have to charge you $1 is because if we don't, then it's considered gambling, and that's illegal. So that's what the bar is there at the bottom of the screen. All right, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good night. Happy Saturday. We'll see you on the next one. Have a good night. Juan, have a good night.